Hello and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. I'm Valerie Green from CoachValerieGreen.com, and this podcast is meant to offer you the world's expert teachers on love, both self-love and that mind-body-spirit connection that we have with ourselves, which is important to feel that soul-shaking love, as well as that mind, body, and spirit connection with another person. And so today I am so excited to bring you Jan Stringer from, she used to be attractperfectcustomers.com, but now she has pivoted her business to be about attracting everything that you long for in your life with Sacred Synchronicity. So hello, Jan.
Hi, Valerie. Fun to be here with you.
Yes, and I'm so excited because as we were chatting about before this interview, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction and how to attract what you want. And I think that the way that it's presented in many cases is a little superficial. Not everybody, but it's not just about focusing on what you want and not feeling your unpleasant feelings and just focus on who you want to feel, because then we attract who we're being, not just what we think about or what we're feeling. So I love this topic, and the title of the talk is The Magic of Sacred Synchronicity is Love. And yes, is there anything that you just want to say right off the bat? Because I'm going to say more about you, Jen, before we dive in, but this is your purpose.
Pretty bodacious to say, isn't it? The magic of sacred synchronicity is love. Yeah, there's a lot in just that one statement. So I think, all I would say about it is there's so much in there that you get to experience. And when it's experiential, that's the best way to learn. And so what I really think my message is about is to kind of wake people up to noticing because it can be very subtle. And so if we notice there's magic, we notice there's sacred synchronicity, we notice there's love, then we start waking up. Guess what we'll see more of by being aware of it. So
absolutely. Yes. I'm going to put a bookmark there just because I think that that's such a brilliant way of noticing. First, you have to get really clear about what you want and how you want to feel on the inside. And then it's about opening up to noticing the little synchronicities. And I love that you teach that, because so many people second guess themselves and they're like, but is that really a sign? And I don't know, because we're in our heads and we don't know how to access our intuition. So I want to put a bookmark there because that'll be the first question that I'll ask you about. But first, I want my audience to know who you are. And so I actually interviewed Jen about 10 years ago and I think it might be on my YouTube channel. If not, I will put it there because I want to, put as many interviews of Jan as possible out there because I love her message. And so I'll share a little bit more about her. So Jan was a business coach for 22 years and also a speaker and a trainer. And she has written actually 3 books. So the first one is Attract Perfect Customers, and the second one is Being Attraction, which is what I interviewed her about last time. What love has to do with business and marketing. And so her new book is Sacred Synchronicity, which is the doorway to love, power, intuition, and purpose, your divine blueprint for success, which of course we'll talk about how to get at the end of this interview. And the reason that she wrote that book is because after business coaching for 22 years, and this is, we'll ask her more about her story, of course, that she then had an unexpected turn and a new message emerged about love and about intuition and about power and about purpose. And so that's what we're here to talk about, is how can you really attract not just the experience you want to have on the inside, which is self-love, but then an amazing loving partner, which, she'll share about in her own life too. But then also, how do you live according to your values and your purpose and really feel like you're thriving? Because that's another aspect of self-love. So without further ado, yeah. So first of all, I'd love to hear, what is your definition of sacred synchronicity? But then, of course, I know you shared a lot about your story before the interview, so I'm sure that everyone's dying to hear more.
Well, sacred synchronicity is something that a notion or a concept or two words that came to me in 2017. And I had been teaching about a law of attraction called strategic attraction, attracting perfect customers, mostly to a business clientele. And a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Alan Davidson, who has since passed on, he invited me to have a VIP session with him. And after the 2 days of meeting, the culmination of it was Sacred Synchronicity. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I'm so excited about it. And that was May of 2017. And I was looking forward to, how messages come to me. They come in little bites, here's this, here's that, here's this experience. Oh, this is that, it wasn't just like, here's exactly what this is yet. And 2 months later, my husband passed away, who was also my business partner.
Yeah.
And so the whole sacred synchronicity thing just went, on the back shelf, somewhere to be picked up at a later date. And that took about a lot of soul searching, as you can imagine, of, having been with a partner for so long and we worked together. How do I go about my life now? And interestingly enough, it was 2020, just before the big pandemic was announced. I was thinking of letting go of my whole attracting perfect customer business and just, I don't know what I was going to do, retire or think of something more fun to do than that, because I was ready for a change. And the divine works with me in interesting ways that it brings me different things for me to look at. And if I'm awake and aware, I'll know, oh, sit up, pay attention. This is something you should do.
Exactly.
And that was an opportunity to write in a compilation book, 700 words. It wasn't a lot. And I chose to write about the magic of sacred synchronicity. Did I know about what that was yet? No, but it's sometimes when something new wants to be born, an idea or a message, it takes a bit, like you have to sample it a little, and learn from it or take a step and have an experience. So that sacred synchronicity came along, was my first opportunity to write. And so I did that chapter. And then another opportunity and another and another. And that's how it was starting to take shape and form and me learn about it.
Yes, it's funny. I'm laughing because it's so meta.
It's so what?
It's so meta, meaning you were writing about sacred synchronicity, and then as you wrote a small blurb, then an opportunity for a larger blurb came along, and an opportunity to write about it more came along, and that is a very synchronous process, but it's about synchronicity.
Yeah, so that's really sacred synchronicity. It is unplanned, unknown, and I do believe that it comes from being in touch, in alignment with our purpose, our sacred mission on life, whatever you want to call it. And I discovered, and because sacred synchronicity is kind of like a big thing, it felt big, I wanted to bring it into something more that I could hold. And I came up with the 4 words: love, power, intuition, and purpose. And so I get the words, I start building a website. So different things start to happen, just delving into me being explorative about what is sacred synchronicity. And I think it could be different for everyone.
Yeah.
I do believe it comes from being willing to explore, not know, live kind of in the unknown possibility of what it could be.
Yeah.
And that's the experiences that have been coming that I call sacred synchronicities.
Amazing. And thank you. And I love all of those 4 words that you just mentioned, because I think that each one has its own meaning for you. And it seems like you have a process around sacred synchronicity. like first you get in touch with your purpose, and that has to do with self-love. And so I'm sure people want to hear about how you really ground this in your own life.
Well, I'm going to say, I don't think there's a linear approach. Like it doesn't come with first. It could come all at once. All of those 4 words could be activating part of you at once, and one may be more predominant than the other. So I think it depends on the person. I've been spending, like the last 20 something years delving into what my purpose is. So that's kind of like an area I'm more familiar with. But if somebody was just discovering and really delving into that, might be their first dipping their toe into it. But
Sure.
what came for me is love. And so, as I mentioned, my partner passed away.
Yeah.
You want to go on, you want to live your life. I'm fairly young, I'm very healthy. I love to have a partner. I thought the way to love is to have a partner. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started dating, and I didn't really score too well in that. I think my longest relationship was about 3 or 4 months over
Yeah.
the last few years. And then it got even shorter, like some 24 hours.
Right.
Okay, that
I'm
one,
sure a lot of us can relate to that.
that's a swipe left,
Right.
um, then I had this is how sacred synchronicity works. Like the divine brings experiences that I have to go through so that I start to open up in other areas, other
Yeah.
way. But I didn't plan it that way, right? But I also don't believe there's no accidents.
Right.
However, I was in a serious car accident. All
Wow.
right. So I don't believe in accidents, but I just had an accident. I'm like, okay,
Right.
what do I make of that?
Right.
And so I had some injuries that I needed to heal from. And the other side of it is that it was an opportunity for me to go deeper into some old wounding that I had as, young as a child that needed to be released. And so the car wreck was kind of symptomatic of wrecking up, shaking up that part of me that needed to re-release. And so that was something that I've been experiencing. And so I had to allow myself the time to heal from the wounds, but I also had to love myself where I
Mhm.
was. And I had been working on a website, and I had hoped that by the beginning of this year, I was going to be doing, some things around my business that I was recreating. But guess what? I had a car wreck instead. And
Right.
sure, I would have liked to have been dating someone, but you're just not really going to find somebody when you don't feel good. So you got
Of
to heal.
course.
So, so I think the divine works in mysterious ways. And what I discovered now, I can look back 6 months later, or a little more actually, that what I was discovering was self-love. So the door to open for love started with opening this door of self-love. How well did I love myself? And letting go some of the wounds and hurts that I'd had in the past. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's been a big part of the first part of this year.
Wow. I mean, you just said so much there. And I want to really break it down because it's so many nuggets of wisdom that for you, it sounds like what self-love meant was going from the belief that, oh, if I want to be loving and loved, I just need to meet a man, and that's how I find love.
Right.
And that what you got back because you were thinking that love comes from outside of you was relationships that didn't really go very far. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that if you have self love that you'll meet someone right away. But it's like you weren't. Your intuition said that's not the path. But, you know, I mean, or you weren't having fulfilling experiences. Then you had this quote unquote accident, which, I mean, you are so brave to look at it this way, that everything's an opportunity to heal. And that you took the time rather than pushing through and thinking, I'm only valuable for what I do. But you felt that you were valuable for who you are, and you needed to slow down and heal, not just from this accident, but the accident brought up wounds from the past that you now, with self-love and self-compassion, have the opportunity to look at and release. And, you know, we could have a whole interview, of course, about how to do that. But that's the attitude of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And so what became possible for you after that?
Well, from a place of self-love, I believe that the dating that I was doing became shorter and shorter because I became clearer and clearer what was perfect for me, what was right for me, and what's not right for me. And I'm not interested in wasting any time with years of bad relationships. I'm in that second part of life, plan B, part B, or what, C or D or whatever it is. And yeah, I want, happiness. I want ease. I want joy. I want passion and love and feel love and give love. And so I just wasn't connecting with the right people on that. So I gave up. And it doesn't sound like a real tip or what you need to do, but I truthfully threw my hands up in the air, so to speak, and I said, done. I love myself. I'm happy with who I am. Spending time by myself or with friends is great. And I'm okay with that. And so if I never meet somebody, I got a good partner, and that partner is me.
Yes.
And 3 fur babies. But and I have a little prayer, so I'll pass this on because somebody passed it on to me, that whoever your divine is, I pray to God. And I when I did meet somebody new, I just say, maybe after a date or an experience of meeting them, like before I go to sleep at night, say, God, if this is the right person for me, bring him forward. If it's not, let him go on his way.
Right.
And that way, I'm just like letting the divine show me who I need to be with,
Exactly.
and not wasting my energy or efforts in the wrong place.
Exactly.
So anyway, I had this one experience that I mentioned, kind of like reached the end of that, going, okay, I think I'm done with dating. And it was that night, actually, I didn't see it till the next morning, but there was a message from someone on the dating service that I was using. And I'm like, well, what the heck? I've already given up. I might as well just be a flirt. And oh, it's great. There's this light reflecting outside.
Yes, it's perfect.
And so the next morning, I just sent him a message and I said, is the coffee ready? And it was just like, I did meet him for coffee the next day, and we've been together ever since. And it's
amazing.
We both love coffee. So, it could start as simply as that. But I do believe that all of these kind of seemingly disparate pieces were working in my behalf. Sometimes it doesn't look like it. And so.
Right, which is what sacred synchronicity is.
How it looks, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's supposed to look like this. You do this, then this, then this.
Exactly. Yeah, because that was what I wanted to ask you, is because it seems like
close my window here. This is blinding me.
Yes, for those who are listening, it's a nice metaphor because a bunch of light just came in from her window and she had to close it because it was blinding her. And so in talking about sacred synchronicity, it's important not to get overwhelmed and to slow down, which is what we just did with the light. And that's a good metaphor. But so what I want to ask you then is, you're saying you gave up. And I think that's a really good word, because most people think giving up is, I'm done with dating. I'm not gonna even try to meet anybody, but it's I'm shutting down, I'm closing off, I'm building a wall. That's what most people think of as giving up. It's like a feeling of resignation. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about giving up this strategy, this masculine energy, as I would call it, putting towards dating. But obviously, there's nothing wrong with masculine energy when you're trying to accomplish goals. But we're talking about love here. And so it's giving up on what you think it should look like, or how you think it should manifest, or what qualities the guy you think should have, as opposed to your intuition.
Yeah.
And does this feel right? Not does it feel good, but just does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like home?
Right. Yeah. And then trust, I'm still working on issues of that. And I think that's a slowly developed thing. At least it is for me. Trusting myself after so many times that it didn't work out. Now all of a sudden it's like, wow, this seems like this is working. And I had a sacred synchronicity experience that was at my, I have a dog. She's probably in the background somewhere. And I took her to the dog park to walk. And I like to listen to my music. And the song came on that I'd never heard. And I was like really caught, like every word of the song felt like it was singing to me. And it was, what are we waiting for? And on and on, it's like different words, but that's what stood out. What am I waiting for? Like all of it's kind of like you've been dating and not having results that you wanted. And then all of a sudden someone comes along that could be the one you wanted. And I was still doubting myself. And so that's when I'm like, there's a part of me that has to say, yeah, I'm willing to experience whatever comes along with this particular relationship. I'm not going to wait. I'm going to say, yes, I'm in.
Yes. And then
so far, so good.
Well, exactly. And of course, I'm thrilled about that. And it sounds like, if you're saying that you are learning how to trust yourself, which I think many of us can relate to, that in my opinion, trust is about self-trust, which is about, do I trust my own intuition? Right. And because it's like, obviously, trust is earned. You're not going to trust someone you just met, but how do you develop trust? It's feeling our own intuition. And so it sounds like you had this journey from being more in your head to being more in your heart and more in your intuition. And so how did you start to develop that?
Well, baby steps probably would be a good answer. Also, I walked away from being single. And I had I had to really work at being single. So I was proud of that. After my husband died, I hadn't been single. And I needed to really become good with that. So, and then now here was an opportunity to have a relationship with somebody and to be willing to walk away from that whole thing that I had built so successfully called being a single woman. And now step gingerly into a new direction. But I didn't want to repeat the same relationships over and over and over that I'd already had.
Right.
So that was what was new, is that I didn't want to just rush right in and try to do everything I'd done before. I wanted it to be new. I wanted it to be in sync and alignment with who I am today.
Yeah.
And I have different needs, different wants than when I was a younger woman. Now I'm at a stage of my life, I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to ever get married. There's just different things that I don't find I need. So what do I need now?
Exactly.
And that's that's the exploration on the new side of dating someone consistently and finding joy there, and all at the same time developing myself and not losing myself inside of a relationship.
Right. Which is also a big piece. So, do you have an example of maybe when you used to lose yourself in a relationship, and what do you do differently now in order to say,
Yeah.
wait a minute, instead of making him wrong, or instead of writing him off, or instead of being scared about what he's doing, instead, I'm going to bring it back to myself, and it's about my intuition, and it's about my purpose. Like, what is my purpose here? To be love or to be loving.
Yeah. Really had a very big lesson. Peter and I had been dating, I guess, a couple of months or so. And one of the things that I started on my own before I met him was taking tango lessons.
Ooh, that's tango
And
is a brilliant metaphor. Yes.
tango is all about a dance of relationship. So it's
Yep.
very interesting. And so I have taken tango off and on for several years. I'm still learning, I consider myself quite, a novice. And I was taking some private lessons and going to a class. So now I have a guy in my life, and he says, "Oh, that sounds great." He's not a tango dancer. He's done dance particularly, but he's happy that I did. And there was a workshop coming up. And I'd been looking forward to this teacher from Buenos Aires to come in town and do the workshop.
Fun.
So I invited him to take the workshop with me. I've never done a workshop with tango, so I didn't really know what to expect. It was going to be a Friday night, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And I said, well, why don't you just come on Friday night, decide see what you see. If you like it, you want it, stay. If not, you go. And so here we go, into the blind unknown of called a tango workshop.
Mm-hmm.
A new couple, we don't not dance together. It's all great metaphors.
Yes.
And we're going to learn from a master who's, tango is very sensuous and close and intimate. And here we go into this unknown territory. So one of the things, just as a sidebar of tango, it brings up all of your issues.
Partner dance in general, but tango specifically.
As a child, I was like,
because it's so
he didn't
slow.
like me. He doesn't want to dance with me. Oh, he doesn't think, oh,
Yes.
I'm not very good. I'm not as good as the other girls. Oh, she looks better in her outfit than I do. It's just all these no running, and you have
Me
to
too.
just push through and go, put that aside. You're here to have fun. This is just fun. And so I have all that going on, as well as I have this new boyfriend. And so some of the other ladies kind of took him over, and he's dancing with them. And then at the break, he says, this isn't for me. And I went, okay, I understand. That's what we had discussed. And he says, but I'm going to sit over here and I'll just watch for a while. So anyway, I got more busy in my dancing. I understood that it wasn't for him. I'm not upset about that at all. And then at some point in a few minutes later, I noticed he wasn't sitting there. Like he had left, and he left completely. Like he didn't, he's not even in the room, right? He just left. And so I'm like, oh, he'll be there when I get out. No, he wasn't there. And so I got all upset. I felt really like all these old issues of abandonment came up, and I'm feeling abandoned. And, it's just this big muddle of tango, abandonment. Oh, it's just like all my emotions are on my surface.
Mm.
So I ended up, we didn't get along that weekend at all. Our train was off the track, and it just wasn't getting back on. And I didn't go back to the workshop. I let that upset me so much that I didn't go back. So hindsight being 2020, moved past the weekend. He and I worked things out. We didn't end the relationship. We thought we might, and then we didn't. We carried on. But I realized what happened for me is that I abandoned myself.
Right.
That inside of that relationship, he had his issues, whatever that brought up,
Sure.
but I let them spill over on me and take me out.
Right.
And I have been planning and thinking about this workshop for months and excited about it. And I abandoned myself in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I learned to notice. When am I abandoning myself? It wasn't anything to do with him. He didn't do anything to me. I did that all on my own. And that was a big learning lesson for me
Yes, exactly.
about how to trust myself, follow my own inner guidance, that the divine has a plan for me. And then the divine has a plan for us, but you can't sell out on yourself ever for a second inside of that relationship, or you have abandoned yourself. And that
Ab-
was a big.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really telling example of how you did abandon yourself in the past by allowing the triggers to take you over and not be present in the workshop after that.
Yeah.
And of course, we've all done that. So I'm curious to hear how, if you were to have applied sacred synchronicity to this case and you didn't abandon yourself, then how would that have looked different?
Well, it could have been that I didn't let whatever was going on with him flavor my experience, and just
Mhm.
go, yeah, I know it brings up every issue I have. And I just pushed past him. He needed to go push past his in his way. I did have one sacred synchronicity, is that I didn't just stew about it all weekend. I did plenty of that. Don't kid yourself.
Mhm.
But I reached out to a friend who's a very wonderful coach, and she has a great big ear to listen. And she's just right off the bat, she says, you abandoned yourself. And so
Mm.
the sacred synchronicity is that I called the right person. A lot of people maybe I could go on to lunch with and share about what happened, but I got nudged to call her. And she was the right person for me to get back on my feet and feel more balanced and aligned with who I am, and
Yes.
not kill the relationship. And that was a big thing. Is I probably in the past would have just killed the relationship off.
Right, right. Because that would have come from the belief of something like, if he's not, you know, coming towards me or treating me the way I want to be treated, then he's not
He
right
didn't
for me.
tango, forget about it,
Right,
right?
exactly, exactly. As opposed to, wait a minute, I'm triggered. Let
Uh-huh.
me put attention on what I feel and need, which is not abandoning myself, which you just, did so well there. And
And
then,
not blame him that at first I thought he abandoned me.
right.
That wasn't it at all. And at first it always looks like it's about the other person.
Right, exactly. And sometimes it is the other person, right? But you don't know that until you can really access your
Right.
intuition, which it
Right.
sounds like you knew that that nudge, which is what I would call our intuition, was to call the right person so you can get the support you needed. But what I would say is you don't sense that nudge when you're triggered, right? So it's about slowing down,
Right.
because a lot of times people think, oh, listen to the voice within. What is my intuition saying? But the voice can be our inner critic, or it could be our programming, as opposed to our intuition, which feels more right. And so it's about, in my opinion, slowing down and paying attention to our feelings and needs and self-soothing so we can access our intuition. And it sounds like that's what you did, so that you're like, oh, I'm being called to call my friend to get support. And then she helped you get grounded and to know what was actually happening, rather than he didn't abandon you. Something else was going on with him that you discovered later.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's also, I do believe that every kind of like upset like this or issue that flares up or trigger is an opportunity to help one another to create that agreement that you didn't have before. So
Yes.
we didn't have years of experience of communicating with one another, but we got to talk about it later and say, well, in the future, if anything like that jumps up, let's at least chat it out.
Yes, exactly. And that's how you learn what the other person's preferences are, is by talking about it. But you can't do that if you're blaming him. So it sounds like first, oh, there's your cat. Oh, what's your cat's name?
It's the spirit.
Spirit?
Spirit.
Oh, that's a beautiful name. Oh, a boy or a girl?
A boy.
Oh, he's so adorable. For those who are watching, they can see it on the video, but for those who are listening, I think cats are also a beautiful synchronous. I mean, obviously, cats are wonderful animals and members of the family. And my experience is cats come to comfort us when we're feeling strong feelings sometimes. And so it sounds like
when I'm on a Zoom like this, there's a lot of energy flowing, and pets just love that energy. So
yeah, exactly. Pets just love to be around, or animals love to be around people who are engaged and happy and on purpose and feeling good. So, and of course, animals are also, when we tap into unconditional love, animals are that we have a relationship with are a wonderful way to give and receive love, because that's how we raise our vibration, is by paying attention to the love that's already in our lives, right? So that's, I'm sure, also what you talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so let's really break this down for people, because I don't know that we really defined what exactly is sacred synchronicity. And how do you know that you're following it rather than getting off track?
It really does come through guidance. I believe sacred synchronicities happen when you follow guidance.
Right. And which guidance, right? Because it's like, that's what we're talking about, is because a lot of times when we're anxious, we think we hear our guidance to just like text him or call him, or, like we think that's our guidance. So how do you tell the difference?
Oh, that's so hard because there's emotions that get in running the show. And then there's guidance. I think that's really is the opportunity, is to learn that between the two.
Yes.
And so I use a pendulum personally. Well, I have my pendulum right here. So I use a pendulum, and I ask my pendulum for guidance. When I'm getting mixed messages, let's say, do I text him? Do I call him? Do I not? Do I do this? Do I do that? And I can't quite get a clear message inside of myself. I like to use a pendulum, and it will give me an answer. So you can do a whole. But,
I love that, because it is about slowing down.
And you can ask for accurate information from your pendulum, and your pendulum will just give you a visual. Yes, no. And it's about following your trust in what it says. Because, the pendulum said no, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. Well, go ahead and just see what was the experience. And then you're like, well, maybe I should have listened to the pendulum. But you could also avoid any certain things. But I do think that sacred synchronicities come from guidance, and it gives us the experience that we're needing.
Yes, exactly. And that's really hard to interpret from our rational mind, right? So I think everything that you're talking about, like the pendulum, or if we have a meditation practice, or if we do inner child work when we're anxious, let's say, it's all about slowing down and then paying attention to what feels right rather than what feels good. And I think a pendulum is a great way of getting out of our left brain, so that we can be in our body and the present moment. And it gives us that sense, does that feel right? We learn how to interpret the subtle physical signs in the moment. That could be from a pendulum. That could be from, I'm clairsentient. So I receive my messages through body sensations. It kind of feels like when it's right for me that I have this almost like I have this vertical channel going up and down my body, and it's like a guitar string being plucked and it's vibrating. But I had to really slow down because it's very subtle. That's why they call it the still small voice within. It is always still small because you have to slow down to pay attention. And other people might have other ways of accessing their intuition. Maybe they hear a voice in their head that sounds a particular way, that sounds more peaceful.
Yeah.
But I think
fine. I mean, there's lots of ways to see, hear, feel messages, and that's the fun, is we get to tune into that. What's our way? Is it a physical sensation? Is it something in my ear?
exactly. And I think that you said it really well too, that we have to have self-love in order to even do that. Because if we're critical of ourselves or we're judging our feelings, then who we are is being self-critical. And then we can't feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we can't feel what feels right. Because the fact that we're doubting ourselves doesn't feel right in the first place. And so how do you deal with that? Well, it's about slowing down, paying attention to our feelings and needs, right? Like, what do you do when you're doubting yourself to kind of get back to that place where you can even use the pendulum, where you're centered enough?
I did practice a lot in using the pendulum and following the guidance. So yeah, I have had to practice things because you overcome, or you're new to it, or you want to learn a new skill. It takes practice.
Yeah, no, it really does. And I know that's what you teach people in your work now, is about sacred synchronicity. And it sounds like, I mean, because every word that you use in the title of your book, power, intuition, purpose, and love. We talked about love and we talked about intuition, but we didn't talk a lot about power and purpose. So you could probably talk for another hour about all of the aspects of sacred synchronicity. And I know that, I mean, of course, feel free to share any more about it, but I know you said you had to go soon. So I would love to also have you share where people could learn more about your book, your new book about sacred synchronicity. And then you also have a free gift. So, of course, feel free to talk about that. But then if you want to talk about how purpose and passion, purpose and power fit in to the whole picture, you can do so here. But I know it's a much longer topic.
Well, we really have hit on purpose quite a bit in the word sacred.
Yes.
I do feel that our sacred journey, our purpose, and that's what the free gift is all about. Truthfully, it's giving language to our purpose, our sacred journey. And a lot of times we've been on that journey, but we just didn't know what to call it. And so my free gift is a tool, a tip on how to give it a title. Like for me, when I was working on what makes me tick, I came up with the words that what makes me tick is being voice of feminine spirit. And that really meant a lot to me, in that I resonate most with the feminine energy of, flowing, dancing, intuition, creativity. That's really what makes me tick. And then when Sacred Synchronicity came out, I became the voice of Sacred Synchronicity. And that's when all of my psychic and intuitive gifts started really coming in. I've been doing readings for people, and I can do mediumship. I mean, I have a lot of spiritual gifts that also came along with that says, I'm not only the voice of feminine spirit, I'm the voice of sacred synchronicity. I'm supposed to get that word out there.
Yes.
And so purpose is wound all into what makes you tick and that sort of thing. And you can use the free gift to work more in that area. And I believe that everything that we're talking about empowers or gives us the power of self-power, like we are empowering ourselves. to be
Mhm.
who we truly are meant to be. And rather than giving our power away, for example, we all have experiences where we've sold out on what's important to us. And by saying yes when we mean no, or going in a direction that really isn't part of who I am or my path. And so that's what the power word is about,
Yes.
is aligning with me, myself, and I, and what's right with me and my divine. And that's my journey. And when I'm living in that space, then I have love, I have intuition, I have my power, I have purpose. Life is good.
Yes, exactly. And that is what your free gift is called, is discover what makes you tick. Um, and I completely agree, because it's only when we know ourselves deeply and what makes us tick that then we know how what we need, which is not like I need him to do that. It's like, oh, I need um really deep communication with somebody. I need to have deep conversations about what makes us tick, because that's the only thing that makes me feel connected to somebody. Um, and I need to be with a man who likes to have deep conversations because I'm deep, right? And so it's like that's part of knowing what makes me tick. Oh, and there's your beautiful cat. Um, and it's only when I know that and I know myself on a deep level that then I know what I need in a relationship and what my purpose is, both in life and in relationship. And then I can follow the signs. But if I don't know what my purpose is and what makes me tick, then I think I need to get things from the outside in order to feel fulfilled, as opposed to I have my own centeredness and I can influence how I feel no matter what's going on around me. That sounds like what you're saying, with really knowing how you're
Yeah.
wired or what makes you tick. And that's what your free gift is about.
Yeah. Be able to stand in your space, be around whoever you're around, and still be you.
Yes, yes, which it brings it all full circle, because in my opinion, that's what it means to fully be yourself. um, and thrive with that self love, that self connection, and sacred synchronicity that then draws to us all of the people, places, and things that support us with what truly makes us thrive, because we're so deeply self connected. And so I love that that's your mission. And I know that you also do coaching and teaching, and your new book is also on your website, I believe. So I will put all of that. I'll put
The
your
book is in process, but there's a place, if you're interested, you can let me know and I'll keep you posted.
yeah. Well, your website is your sacredsynchronicity.com. So I imagine, because this interview will be up forever. So when your new book is out, can people get it at that website?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So we're doing this interview in October of 2023. And when do you release the book?
I'll let you know.
Yes, yes. Oh, trust me. I'm
I'm
I'm producing the second edition of my book, so I'm like, I don't know.
two irons in the fire, but yes, it's up there, and the book will come when it's meant to be. So
Yes, that is the perfect answer. But anyway, so if you are watching or listening to this, I will put the website below this, which is yoursacredsynchronicity.com. And so then when the book is, you can click that. And if the book is out, it'll let you know how to get it. If not, then obviously there's a lot of other information about how to reach Jan and learn about her offerings there. And of course, I will put the link to your free gift below this to discover what makes you tick, because I agree that's a huge part of tapping into those opportunities that are always there on the outside when you know how to recognize what feels right on the inside. So I love the way that you shared all of that. And I encourage everybody to ask themselves if it feels right to go to Jan's website and download her free gift and check out her new book. And if it does, then I'll put the links below. And do you have any last inspiring thoughts to share?
I do. I have a deck of cards here,
I love it.
energy oracle cards. So I drew a card, and it's kind of hard to see in the video, maybe, but the word is
Yeah.
harmony, and that was really what we have been talking about here is just blessing everybody on their journey. And the card shows a picture of a woman crossing a bridge, and that our journeys really are about leaving the baggage behind us, and that in front are multiple signs pointing in different directions that she could go. That's what's on the card. And that we're all, there's no wrong direction that on your journey. So just enjoy your journey and know that it is divinely orchestrated in whichever direction you go. So good luck.
Gosh, I love that. And just the fact that you pulled a card that says journey is exactly about not, like you said, giving up on how you think it should look and being self-connected with our intuition and looking for what feels right along the way. And so the fact that you pulled that card is also very synchronous.
I love how it works.
Yes, exactly. And then it's a good message to leave everybody with. That synchronicity is happening all the time if we are self-connected enough to recognize it.
That's right.
And so with that, I encourage everyone to reach out to Jan and to pay attention to the small nudges that come from your intuition today, because that you never know what's going to happen.
Right.